I did look, didn't I? I said I haven't realised he'd actually done the signature. I did look before the time, and I said that's right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Oakham Town Council meeting. May I welcome Councillors Carr, Hine and Wadsworth. I know it's not your first meeting, it's your first meeting with me, so welcome to the Council, and I hope you enjoy your time with us. Also, Councillor Stubbs is permitted to remain seated tonight without requiring to stand. Thank you. Okay. Apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Hopkins due to ill health. Some proposal for that, please? Proposed. Councillor Howard, second. All those in favour? Unanimous. Declarations of interest. Are there any disclosable pecuniary interests which you may have in respect of the items on the agenda, or any other interests which you may have in respect of items to the agenda? If you have, you should declare them tonight and sign the book. And you're also reminded to inform the clerk of any changes in your register of members' interests. Please do that.
Yes.
Okay, Councillor.
Item 8, part 2.
That's cool. Yeah.
Treasurer of Victoria Hall. I wasn't involved in the decision to use Victoria Hall as an event.
Okay. So, are you remaining?
I will remain. I won't take part in any debate concerning that.
All vote. All vote. All vote. Does someone else?
Yes, that is just it, isn't it? Item 11, number 2, because my daughter's doing the brownies.
Okay. So item 11.2, because of your link with the brand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of February 2016. Any comments? Yeah, I've got one. Online. I understand that there's one error in this, and there's a typo error. It's minute 05216. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth line down, after Councillor Stubbs, there should be, and unanimously resolved. Now, I can't propose this if I was absent from this meeting, so does anybody wish to propose that?
I didn't pick that up.
Okay, after your name, sir.
Which item was that again, sorry?
05216, accounting software and external preparation of 2015-16 accounts. The fifth line down, the line starts Councillor Stubbs, and after that there should be, and unanimously resolved that Oakham Town Council purchases. There's no result of the vote included in that minute.
That wasn't to do with, that wasn't to do with the accounts thing, was it?
Right?
That wasn't to do with the accounts.
Yes.
Software. No, that was just the software, wasn't
software,
it?
Yes, yes.
Because I think there was something included in the item together, wasn't there, about appointing streets for
which is the paragraph following.
Yeah, which is...
This is purely for the software.
Because I didn't vote for that.
No, it should be a vote. There is no record of a vote. That's what we're saying. Councillor Stubbs? Proposed. Proposed, seconded?
No, they wouldn't have been...
Councillor Howard? Okay. All those in favour, please? So we amend the minutes, Hayley? You've got to say, I can't do that.
9 votes for and
2 abstentions. Thank you. Okay, then any other points on the minutes? Okay, can we accept the minutes as amended, please?
Second.
Okay, Councillor Howard. Councillor Stubbs. All in favour of accepting the minutes as amended?
No, sorry. I wrote my comments and I thought my name is spelt incorrectly. And I sent it in plenty of good time with those, and I assumed that I hadn't had time to read it. Well, there was more than one. I sent it to the clerk and there was something else wrong, so I assumed there was another mistake. I can't remember offhand.
Can you identify where the error is?
Well, on the first one that jumps off the page where my name is spelled wrong is 4916, and it's more than once on there.
Yeah,
But
but
there
in
was
the fourth
a-
paragraph, there's no E.
But now I can't remember offhand what my email
Okay.
was, but there was a point
So-
where there was something else
Would you
wrong.
accept it if we amend your name where it occurs to be BROOKES throughout the minutes?
You can do, but also could the clerk maybe look for the email, because it will be,
No, we're accepting you.
no, because I pointed out an
Something
error.
else?
Yeah, but I can't remember what it is.
When did you send it?
As basically the next day after I read it through, when we were asked to
I know that from
send
the
it.
email today, but it shouldn't actually come through.
But that was straight after this meeting
Okay.
almost.
Okay, well, I mean, if you can't remember what it is, I can't make any amendments to the minutes, can I?
I don't think it was that serious, but it's a bit frustrating if you do go through something.
Well, I mean, I'm correcting all of them, Martin, and I apologise that I missed that one off. I apologise.
No problem, it's just,
Okay.
we'll move on.
Okay, well, all I can say is the amendment which we proposed there, where your name is, where it occurs as BROOKS, which is amended to BROOKES. And also the amendment already agreed to minutes 05216. Okay, can I have a, before I even say, Councillor Howard, seconder? Councillor Phillips. All those in favour of the minutes as amended? I can't vote, I can't vote. As we do, 9-2.
Sorry, I can't do this conversation.
Can you not want to causing problems? Okay, on to Martin. Okay, councillors' questions. I've received one question from Councillor Brooks. And it reads, I am concerned that the cemetery working group is not providing reports or recommendations for the full council to consider. When will the working group be providing full reports and recommendations related to this major project? The response is that the working group was originally set up on the 9th of September 2015, and on the 30th of October 2015 it had a meeting with Rutland County Council. On the 3rd of November there was a slideshow update which was also shared with all the members and forwarded in March 2016. On the 9th of December there was a council agenda item there which formally agreed to take over the cemetery and asked the OTC solicitor to review the heads of terms of the contract. On the 30th of December there was a tour of the cemetery by the chairman of the working group and myself. On the 16th of January 2016 town council conducted a tour of the cemetery on their own, and then on the 27th there was a question and answer session following that tour where members were able to raise questions from whatever they saw. On the 15th of February, there was another meeting with RCC, and then on the 25th of February, there was a working group meeting with Councillor Elliott and William Perslow of Smithers Perslow on a fact-finding session. So all those reports and agenda items and recommendations have come forward in the 6 months or so that the working group has been formed. And all we can say is that RCC are presently undertaking work, and further reports will be provided in the future at relevant points. Thank you.
Graham Cooley from Smithsburg.
Graham Cooley, not one person. Okay. Next one is Chairman and Members' reports. That's all that you.
Oh yeah. Well, there was going to be interesting that what's just been read out there by Alf has been prepared in anticipation of tonight's meeting anyway, so I don't really need to do that. But we did a slideshow for all councillors last year, which has been sent round to everybody. And I was going to suggest that because of where we're moving to, it would be appropriate probably to have another informal meeting with all councillors to come along and bring everybody up to speed, certainly what's been happening in the last week. One of the sticking points on the cemetery is that we are still waiting for our solicitors to come back with any feedback on the heads of terms. But there's, I believe, an agenda item coming up at the next council meeting anyway. I attended the Oakham Allotment Society meeting on Friday, I think it was, in lieu of Alf being on holiday or recovering from his holiday. Well, I mean, the holiday was on holiday, I'm not sure what he did. But anyway, I went there with Julie and it was a very good event. And the amalgamation of the allotments and what they're doing with a lot of the one up on Brook Road was talked about, so they seem to be gelling together quite well. Michael, Haley and myself attended the Oakham Town Centre meeting. Remember, everybody was wanting to go on this and it was only unfortunately 2 people. You don't have to write this down, Richard, I'll give you this typed out bit here. Basically, the event consisted of a presentation by Councillor Tony Mathias on the ward members' vision, this is Rutland County Council, ward members' vision for Oakham Town Centre. Basically a strong positive message from RCC ward members who want to see the town centre regeneration become reality. There was a presentation from Dave Brown, one of the officers of Rutland County Council, on the effects of the level crossing on the Oakham Town Centre. For the foreseeable future, the current downtime of the barrier will not be changing. In other words, it's not going to be extending in the near future. Presentation by a specialist general town regeneration expert covering general town centre regeneration, urban design and pedestrian/traffic integration, which was followed by another specialist from an organisation who connect expertise across services, markets and geographies to deliver transformative outcomes. So it was very much a briefing on what is out there. An open forum afterwards for the views and discussions from the room, and an open dialogue between the parties present was encouraged and will continue to be engaged, and the beginning of what can be described as a high-level consultation approach to addressing a town centre strategy was established with a view to further meetings with potential options for future appraisal being the way forward. And the next meeting is for June. This is a very high-level report. I can't go into detail because the meeting wasn't in detail, but that's that there, Richard. The band concerts have all been confirmed around books, so this is from the Promotions Working Group. I'm going to ask Alison to send them all round, and she'll be looking for people to, if she's not already asked, to sort of help support these when they kick off on June the 12th. And we'll be giving a full report as well at the next council meeting on what's happening with beacon lighting and also the June the 12th Queen's celebrations events at the Oakham Town. I think that's it.
Thank you. I've met anyone else who wants to present a report, so that gives the Mayor's report. I attended one function since the last report I made, and I also attended a few months late Roger Beggy, the leader of Oakham Town Council, at Greetham on the 15th of February 2016. Can I also remind members that I have a charity event on the 6th of April in the Victoria Hall where it is called Meet Charles Hanson, he's the TV auctioneer who's coming in to give an evening of relatives, which I hope will fulfil the £12.50 tickets which we've done. So I trust that members will be buying into that. Okay, Councillor, lower back again.
Sorry, I just, on your desk, in your desk spaces, there's the Oakham in Rutland leaflet. This has been redone after the first one came out and had proof across the centre in some cases, and there'd been a police station was located on Station Road. The police station has now been removed because it's been sold. So this is the leaflet. All it is a revamp of the Oakham leaflet that was done by the Town Council. It had been in the making for some time, so this has now been produced. When this was passed around to the council, as was in October 2015, there was only one, I won't say negative input, but there was only one person that turned around and said that we shouldn't have the leaflet. Everybody else seems to be in support of it, which is why this design went ahead. So there's now been another lot ran and printed, and that's all been signed off anyway in the strategy document for the week. But that's what the current document is. These will be Richard in the office. So that's another 1,000. And as we need more, they'll be produced. And then whoever takes over next year from Promotions Working Group can fill the boots on that one. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Mark report.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. Councillor Mrs. Lucas and myself met with Historic England on Friday the 4th of March. For new members, we've been out and got quotations for row-top fencing around Cuts Close to match that has been installed around the castle. It was Helen Woodhouse from Dr. Helen Woodhouse from Historic England who we walked around with. Now, as I say, during discussions it became apparent that there may be wider scope to improve the park. Pathways, drainage, entrances, etc., etc. Which is a very long-term project. Historic England will be very supportive of any plans, but obviously we will need schedule monitoring and consent. I put that the cost will be considerable. That will be for archaeological, for the fencing, for everything. So it'll be up to members to sort of say what they want to do next, but the main possibility is a grant application to the Heritage Lottery Fund for that work. So that's just out there now with you. You've got also some information there about the Walk of Witness on the 25th of March, which I've copied for you. Last meeting or the meeting before, it was raised by one of the members about the possibility of a rebate on our CCTV contribution. I understand that has been raised internally at Rutland County Council. I'm just waiting for confirmation that a rebate will be forthcoming. Now, the next two are dispensations and procedures for getting an item onto an agenda. Really for newer members, and also a reminder for all of you, I'm not going to read through it, you've got it all there. If you want to speak on an item but you can't because you've got an interest, let me know. In most cases I am more than happy to grant a dispensation. And how to get an item onto the agenda as well, just to remind everybody. Okay, I'm not going to read it through all of it, Chairman, because it's going to take too long.
Deputations by members of the public. I take it there will be no deputation matters, no members of the public. On to another question for the clerk report.
Sometimes you do allow it. I was going to ask if I could just make a separate comment or a question.
Very quick comment there.
Yeah, I noticed, and I've heard things about this fence, that people are going for quotes around Cuts Close. Now, this hasn't been to council, and yes, Richard did slightly touch on that we make decisions about what we might spend our money on. I would hope that decisions wouldn't be made without bringing this to council.
Can't be made without bringing it to council.
Exactly. This is just a fact-finding mission at the moment, and it will be brought to the council.
You can't spend it without council.
No.
Okay, working group and steering group strategy assurance. Okay, you have two reports there. The first report is the Oakham Community Centre Working Group, which is Appendix B. On green paper. This is really just a note, and it's the OTT building on Princess Avenue. Okay. Yes, Councillor.
Yes, I sent an email about this, and some may have seen it. I'm very concerned that the working group is discussing leases and fees with organisations such as the Kickboxing Club, when this council hasn't set any fees. I'm very disappointed to read that the Kickboxing Club feels it can't afford it. The other week we set a preset of £9,000 additional to cover the loss of the income of that. So there should be no time when a working group is telling people who approach us like this for the use of whatever we call it officially, the community centre, and then they go away feeling they can't use it or can't afford it when we haven't even set a fee. And I'd like the working group to be given, no offence to them, but I've totally lost track of what that working group is supposed to be achieving, and I would like them to have clearly defined terms of references. I believe we should also go out and get a quote to see what the market value is of the property plus letting, because we have a document filed away showing that actually when it was in a poor state of repair some 3 years ago, that we could rent it for £12,000 plus a year, and we ended up renting it out after spending £60,000 doing it up for £9,000 a year. So, but we can forget that, it happened. But we cannot be discussing with people like Out of the Rut on terms which were based on the previous tenant. They had no authority to do that. We need to sit down and decide and find out the true facts of what it's worth, and then say to the working group, find us tenants, and this is the cost. Because I'm disappointed that we have...
You did say short.
Yeah, I'm just finishing. Very disappointed that a community club has now felt that the Oakham Town Council can't accommodate them.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please do. I don't want to make a lot of this.
First of all, the working group has a clear remit that was given from by the chair of the council, which is working through. Secondly, organisations that have shown an expression of interest in the building have been given indicative costs for leasing based on advice from the clerk. No contracts that have been negotiated or entered into. All parties that shown interest have been told quite clearly that the working group does not have authority to enter into any negotiations with them. But it is only right and proper that they should have an indicative cost, otherwise they don't know where they're coming from.
Okay, no, I'm not going to go any more. Any decision on this will come before council, and council will decide on the rent.
No, but the comment...
No more. The next one is the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group. Now, this is coming before you because there's expenditure required. If you look at the bottom of Appendix C, you'll see that the working group wished to hire Victoria Hall for £100 and also to have marketing material to do for £200. The budget for this is £1,500 in this present year, and the spend so far is £170. So this comes before you for recommendation for expenditure. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, I have no objection to the fee for Victoria Hall, it seems reasonable. But I am concerned that it keeps popping up. We don't actually get a proper price for marketing materials or a breakdown, and more recently we just seem to say £200. It seems a lot of money, and these leaflets are not being delivered to households, or we had some very nice leaflets from a neighbourhood plan, and I think they've probably gone now, but there was a lot left, and I'm concerned by this, where we just asked to approve figures that are not the true figure. We're supposed to approve figures based on quotes. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's nothing to do with what we're discussing. I just wanted to point out a type in error. It's Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group.
Yes, we've just been
Sorry.
doing that. You probably also did stage yours.
It's probably a very nice plan.
Cam in a silver chamber. Okay, so we just picked that.
Sorry.
We'll be
Sorry.
chastising the author of this later on. Yeah, down the neighbourhood
We
plan.
have fines of cake.
Yeah, did you want to ask a question from Councillor Brooks to just raise? Or not?
Yeah, can we? At this stage, we don't know the cost, the exact cost of marking material, we posted and leaflets, because they're yet to be designed. Until they're designed, we can't get a quote for them. So, as is quite normal practice, we've put in a request for a sum of money which we feel will cover what we want. Thank you.
Can I come back?
Yes, just once.
But I think this shouldn't have come this evening, and just because it's been done, and I've not mentioned it before, I don't think it should be repeated. I think it's not difficult to go out and get a quote for printing work and come to council when it's ready. They've got a very tight budget, as you say, £1,500, and I think they should start being a bit careful with what they are spending on marketing. It's like £200 here, £200 there. It will soon go, and then they'll want more money.
Yes, as the clerk just reminded me, this is to the end of this financial year, which is about 3 weeks away.
I know, but I just,
Okay.
when we make approvals, we
Your
should
point-
be having a paper trail
Your
to
point
audit back to a correct
point is
figure,
noted.
not an estimate.
Thank you. Any other points on this? Can I have a proposal for this? Councillor Howard, seconded Councillor Stubb. All in favour? Yes. Right, I can't. Right, I've just realised I voted and I can't. I'm on doing good. Okay. Alright? Okay. Okay. All in favour? Okay, those against?
I'd like one.
And recorded.
Minutes that I'm just only voting
yes, well,
against the marketing materials.
Okay.
It's unfortunate when you bunch things together like
You're
that.
abstaining? I'm one abstention. Okay, thank you. Right, next one is item 9. It's the council restructure. All members who were here last year will recall the number of meetings we had, which I think was 3 or possibly 4 meetings on looking at the council structure and how we felt it ought to change for the coming few years. So this paper really is a consolidation of what was discussed at the time. Come forward to you now to see whether you wish to.
Yeah. Excuse me, Chairman, I feel quite poorly,
Okay, thank you.
and I shall withdraw. Okay.
You are?
Sorry about this, but we're okay. I'm not okay. I'm okay, I'll just go home. I've got... Sorry to disrupt
That's
the
okay,
meeting, but
Take your time.
I'm all right. Just let me go. If you could do that little shot.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I'll get right to catch them.
Just wait for the clerk to return.
I put something in the water.
Put your mind. Right, okay, thank you very much. As I was saying, this was discussed over a number of evenings by councillors who were in position at the time. Obviously, the 3 new councillors will not be aware of this. And we came to a conclusion, really, after about the third or fourth, that this would be put forward to council for discussion as to whether we wish to take this structure on and run it from this was proposed from the 11th of May. So I leave it now for people who or members to make comments on this. Councillor.
Thank you. Having had time to reflect on this, I wonder whether we should be looking at a bottom-up structure rather than top-down. And with the exception of the starting committee, I wonder whether we need to know the committees at all. We have set up working groups, and which are working very well, I think now. We have put in action plans which give council assurance that the working group is doing what it should be doing, the working group is doing what it should be doing rather, and we have a strategic plan which we're all working towards. So I'm suggesting that the staffing committee is something that's essential for contractual reasons, but everything else is working groups, so that we are bottom up rather than top down form of management.
So can I just clarify that? What you're suggesting there is working groups or reporting to council?
That's right. Yes.
The working group has no authority for spending, you realise?
That is correct.
Yeah.
With the exception of the staffing committee.
Okay, okay. Anybody else? Fine.
Thank you. So, this is new to me, obviously, but I think the proposed structure looks quite sensible. The only query I have is how the planning committee would operate. I mean, we talk of delegated powers, but the structure shows arrows to the full council. So, are we saying that there is actually reporting to the council, or are they just saying what they've decided? Because I would be a bit concerned if we went through planning twice. So I think there needs to be proper delegation. Also, there would be a timescale issue if the planning committee made a decision and then it had to be rubber stamped by the full council. Does that make sense?
Okay, the point I think is that, well, the indication on the proposed structure is that the working group is the route, the working group report. You'll see policy and procedures that work can report either staffing committee or direct to council, depending on the subject, where 2 others report direct to council, 3 report to finance and general purposes committee. But as we know, working groups do not have any authority, cannot spend. So obviously those reports and those recommendations go through to the relevant committee for that authorisation. Does that answer your question?
Well, I was really getting at the planning committee,
Right.
because that's a sort of statutory body, and I think it would be wrong if they were making a decision and then it had to be moved on further.
Yeah, I think the point you're making is that it needs delegated authority.
Yes. Which,
and you probably see from where we're in this report, I can't think where it is, that we need to be able to decide what that delegated authority will be.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. There may be certain planning decisions which need to come to council, some controversial decisions which the planning committee may feel they do not have the power, would want the council to make a decision on, and that would be referred through. But as always, we have problems with planning decisions because of the limited timescales which we're allowed. I think sometimes you get something like 3 weeks, which on 4.5 we would say that if this goes through, then obviously we'd have to decide on a delegated authority for each committee, which would then come before council on the 11th of May as part. So what we're looking at the moment is purely the organisation structure without the delegated powers associated with each committee. Does that answer?
Okay.
Yes, that was.
Right. Personally, I object to you saying that we made a decision at what were informal meetings, where some members actually chose not to attend because they were informal meetings.
That's their decision, Councillor Brooks.
Yes, but if they were told they were meetings to decide the future structure of this council, then they were not properly advised that it was going to end up as a...
I will interrupt you whenever I want. I reject that assertion that they were not told. They were told, every member of this council knew exactly
what I said. They were not told it was a formal meeting. It was informal discussion, and then you have said we made a decision. I didn't agree with this. There was no vote. This is your proposal, Chairman.
It is not my proposal at all.
It is. It's not mine. I'm sorry, it's not mine, and it probably wasn't the majority of the members at that informal meeting. You decided it. No, I won't sit down because I'll have my say.
I'll overrule you then if you're not going to obey by my instructions.
I've started speaking, and I want to talk
about this. And I'm not going to let you unless you listen. Will you just listen?
Isn't it normal to allow me to speak and then you respond?
The point is that what you're saying is totally incorrect.
Well, tell me afterwards.
I'll tell you now. totally incorrect. Your assertion that members did not know what they were deciding. Rubbish, I'm afraid.
Councillor Carr has an opinion as well, Chair, and maybe she could...
Yes, Councillor Carr, would you like to come on?
Would you...
Right, I would like to finish what I
Maybe
started.
you can come back later on. Listen to what other people have got to say.
No, sorry, you've gone round the room and you're not allowing me to have an input.
I will allow you an input in a moment. Just sit down, please.
Could I suggest a proposal that we explore Councillor Haley's suggestion? Because I think there's some merit in that, in terms of having the working group as more of an operational working group that then feed into a higher strategic level, that you don't actually need necessarily the middle tier, if you like. And I guess what I'm saying is having the operational groups that maybe they're not able to make a lot of those decisions, particularly around budget spend, but certainly if their objectives were smart and were they had clear and defined outcomes, and there was a mechanism where they could report in a little bit more smarter way. I mean, some of these reports are very good, but it would be nice to see them RAG rated, so if they were completed, they could go to green, red clearly that this work, a lot of work still needs to be done, and amber that, you know, there's somewhere in between. And I think if there was an overall communication strategy as well that underpinned all of that, I think we could perhaps explore alternative methods and models.
It may be, what I'm going to say, maybe support what has just been said, and also what Councillor Haley referred to earlier. The construction here has 12 monthly meetings of council, monthly meetings of planning committee, and finance and purposes, general purposes monthly. Attention perhaps should be given quite strongly to what the work impact of this is on the very small team at the centre of the council, who have got to be able to generate the necessary paper administration to reflect it. So there's quite a lot of work there involved in that present structure. Maybe the adoption of the working group template in principle would cut down the number of meetings and therefore the numbers of agendas, minutes and work to the centre without having any negative impact on the quality of information which the council gets. The improvement of the submissions brought about by the action report and the strategic plan is already going up. I'll leave it there.
Sam as well.
Yeah, Dan, I'll go down to Councillor Brooks.
Right. Thank you. I'd just like to talk about the planning side of it, because, well, first of all, it can't be monthly. For new members, for the benefit of new members, I was the principal setter-upper of the new planning subcommittee. And my reason for doing that was because we have options when new councillors come onto the council. They don't know the first thing about planning, but they're able to make a decision. Now, in my mind, that's not given a very good profile for the council. So what we did, we formed a planning subcommittee. I arranged training, so everybody on that planning subcommittee had training, and I think that's an important thing to do now. If we have a planning subcommittee, it can't meet monthly because it has to meet when plans come in, and it has to be dealt with. So there can be quite a few meetings. So that's the principle. My principle behind it.
I think going on from that, I think probably all members require training, not just planning. Planning is one which.
But it's essential.
Yes, well, yes, I agree with that. I think it's probably essential for all members there. That's a look.
I'll start at the top, and I won't make the comments about how I felt that the informal meetings went. I'll repeat myself. Monthly for council is fine if you're just going to be doing the statutory things of approving accounts and things like that. This Finance and General Purpose Committee can't exist. We are all councillors who make decisions or have the ability and the lawful ability to do that. By restricting it to this random number of 8 means that all members of this council won't be able to have any input into the general administration of this council. I fully accept that we need a planning committee of trained members, and also proper comment needs to be sent to Oakham Town Council, because that was, as Mr Stubbs said this evening, the reason the subcommittee was set up. When I found out that comments weren't being sent and that we weren't being trained, I stepped down. And it wasn't for asking that, because I'd asked numerous times about the training. Staffing committee is fine, we need it. But I don't understand why, forget for the moment the 8 members of the Finance and General Purpose meeting, why you would want that to be bi-monthly. Tonight we're considering authorising the payment of an invoice for £5,000. Now we've had problems in the past where things have been paid because the due date has come. So, for instance, if this committee was set up, we've met this evening, the clerk gets an invoice tomorrow, and the finance committee, whatever you're going to call it, can't meet for 2 months. The Parks and Planning meeting has been turned, I've lost count how many times that's been turned into full council because of the workload. So, and when I ask why this figure of 8, I'm told it's because of producing agendas and workload. It's only 4 more, and everybody on this council should be able to have an input. Well, I find that I'm not permitted on any working group on this council. So if I'm not permitted on that group there and not able to bring an agenda item to this council, if a member of the ward asks me to bring something to council, it's not going to be a happy council. And it would be my legal right as a councillor to have an input into the business. Now, yes, you can have committees. Now advises against it. It says we are a parish council and we should work as a team. We're losing the team. Yes, the chairman has said he hopes that all members will be on 2 committees. Well, he won't want me on the staffing committee. I don't want to be on planning, and when I put my hand up to go on the finance, I'm sure you're not going to do that. And I'm not going to be happy to come here once a month listening to reports when members have decided that they are spending the taxpayers' money in the way they want to, and there could be 4 of us on that main council meeting who object, but we have no comeback because you're giving them delegated powers in your own writing in there saying that all other council business will be decided by that committee. Yes, the clerk said those words can be changed, but no, that's your words. You want to give all the power to 8 members of this council. And that's not democracy. And I'll finish there, because I will not be voting for this. I don't think that the work has been done properly. You want this rushed through, and then you're saying, oh, we're going to decide what powers. This should have been done through a working group who sat down. If there is a need for some change, we need to scrap parks and planning, because there's nothing goes on in the parks really that couldn't be dealt with at council.
A number of points there. Rushed through, we discussed this last October as far as I recall. So nothing's being rushed through. We are now 4 or 5 months on from there. It is not my report. I have written what was recommended, decided, whatever you want to call it, at those informal meetings, so that it would then come forward to this meeting for discussion. So nothing is decided. There's not decided we're going to have 8 members on there. That was what was discussed in those meetings we had, as well as 6 members on planning and 5 on staffing committee. So it's not my report. So don't keep saying it's my report. It's not. I have written it because I was chair. Okay? This was the point. Just will you let me finish? Would you just let me finish? Purely because of the machinations of the way the council works, that we had informal meetings. And your earlier comment there about people being told, that is totally untrue, because every member of this council knew that we were discussing the council
I think you're misunderstanding what I was saying. They weren't told the serious nature of it. When you're invited to just come to an informal meeting, which has never happened before, people just thought it was a chat or a fight, as it turned out in many cases.
Well, I think your views of our informal meetings are way out.
I can play it to you now, Chairman. I have them recorded on here, where I'm insulted and shouted.
Can you please let me finish? Individual members were able to come to these meetings and put forward their views.
Yes, but I think I've
Can you let me finish, please?
Felt they couldn't because
can you let me finish before over-talking me?
Will you over-talk to me?
Yes, rather than instructing you to sit down. Now, the point is that members have had the opportunity to discuss this. They have an opportunity again to discuss it. This is not concrete. If members want finance and general purposes weekly, then have it weekly. You decide what it is. This is purely for your discussion. That's what it's put here before you. So nothing has been decided. Nothing is concrete in this. And if you feel this is not the way you want to go, then you've got the opportunity of turning it down. But have your views on another way of doing something. Don't just be negative and say, this is no... Can you let me finish? Don't just be negative and just turn it down. What else have you got? We've had a couple of views from other members here about the way we can go. Okay? But this is not in concrete. I will say that again, because it's here for you to discuss. Councillor Elliott.
Could we perhaps bring this round now to considering, instead of the negatives of what we hear, which have been discussed, what might be workable alternatives, or even the optimum workable alternatives, of which one or two have been put up. It'd be good to hear the views of as many people as possible on the alternatives, which will probably also deal with whatever negatives there are within this. It's just a more positive approach.
I think the point would be that if we're going to say this is not the way we want to go, we'll have to go back and start looking at the ways we do want to go. It would not be for a discussion in this meeting because it would take too long. If you recall the 3 or 4 meetings we had took 8 hours or so to run through. And during that period there was a number of proposals put forward. Okay, Councillor Cook.
It might be of interest to actually mention why was it decided that then a change was needed in the first place, so that we can all understand why we've arrived at this stage from what we have, from what the normal practices are.
I tend to say surely, but surely is no argument. Everybody is around, and the work you've referred to, Chairman, that's been done before, and the time that's been done, is work that's done, and everything is progressive, and I would have thought this evening could build on the progressive nature of what has already been proposed, and come up with 1 or 2 proposals to take forward. It's up to you.
That's fine.
Thank you. I started by saying I generally supported it, and I still do. I think we're on the right track. To me, a working group tends to be a temporary phenomenon. You know, it's we're looking at a particular subject, whereas the committees are long-term or permanent. So I think there needs to be a bit of a distinction there. What I was getting at earlier was we seem to be saying 2 months' time we will decide in particular what the delegated powers are. I would like to put a bit more flesh on the bones now or in between, because that is something I've seen in the past. These delegated powers become rather nebulous, and then we get a double debate or repeat. So I think we need to be clear cut, and time is moving forward pretty quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
I've been positive.
Go ahead,
the financial matters, or whatever you're calling this, procedures working group, is the new title of the existing financial working group. As I said to them the other day, I may not agree with some of the things that have happened recently, but I understand why they're doing it. But I don't understand why they would be reporting to this committee of few members when councillors are legally responsible for the financial affairs of this council, all councillors. If something goes wrong between that working group and what that committee does, it's all the councillors that could end up being surcharged, and it happens, and I'm not going to be happy. Now, for the positive of this, I see the need for a change, and what I see it is, yes, if you want to have a committee that deals with things like approving general things like what goes on in the park, the beacon lighting thing, if you want to make the main council meetings look a little bit more professional, then have the separate committee, but open it to all members who want to be involved in it. I can't see that any member of this council doesn't want to be involved with the general thing. So that is my sticking point on that. A general purposes committee for the minor things would be fine, but I think finance is important to be considered by council, and the way we have it at the moment, with the very good work that the financial working group does, works, that they report to council and we make the decisions. Now, we've got a situation coming up with the accounts at the end of this year. Now, we did have the hiccup where we had to pay streets extra money because they couldn't wait to come to council for approval, which was literally a week away. Well, we could be in the situation again at the end of this, not this year, but that could happen again, and you're talking, for some strange reason, 2 monthly meetings. So what I'm saying is my proposal would be, now I'm not putting it on the table, but you're wanting a positive suggestion, is we have council that meets monthly with the provision additional meetings are called. All the groups report to full council, so we know what's going on. We have a starting committee, which I'm happy is made up of 5 members. We have a planning committee made up of 6 members who do proper training, not just a half hour at Oakham Town Council. And we have a general purpose committee made up of all members, which is sort of renaming parks and planning. Because there is times when people have made comments, you're at a council meeting and you're talking about something very minor, and it does look silly. So we are trying to become a professional council, but this structure to me doesn't work.
I just want to reiterate really, I appreciate other councillors' comments, but I do think a working group, if they're put in place properly, have proper terms of reference, have a good communication strategy, could alleviate the need having a multitude of other meetings. The council meeting should be a strategic meeting, and so therefore we should be reporting up. And again, if we've got clear mandates, clear terms of reference, clear action plans, it really should cut down on the level of admin and further meetings. And if something were to arise, then call an extraordinary meeting. That's what happens in the world of other businesses and public sector organisations.
The working groups may be of temporary nature, they may be of more permanent nature. What they are the operational management of the organisation. By having working groups feeding into the council, it allows the council meetings to be strategic, focused, and a lot more professional than perhaps they are, as they not always are, I'm afraid to say. I echo what's been said, if the working groups terms of reference are correct and are set by council, we do now have an action plan reporting system which avoids a lot of lengthy reports. It does provide, it is using a proper template, which we're all using. it is allowing council to seek and receive assurance that the working group is doing what it should do. The working groups don't have delegated powers, don't need them, because they are advisory, they are advising council from an operational level to allow council to make strategic decisions. And I think it cuts out a middle layer of bureaucracy, which, other than a staffing committee, I don't think is really necessary for a parish council. The other strength of it is when it comes to planning, as you know, planning applications come in and is often a 30 weeks notice. But the beauty of a working group can have a meeting whenever and however it likes. It's not set on a calendar, so it overcomes this problem of receiving planning applications which can't be looked at or looked at in a hurry because there's not a meeting around that.
Just to follow that up, the working groups can be given the strength and authority that the council decides to do, and it has embarked on putting the working groups as the engine room of what the council does. So I don't think it's unnecessary to dilute the perception of working groups into something temporary. If it brings about good quality reporting upwards, direct to the council, then it's arguably forced for good, and there's nothing temporary or need be anything temporary about that. And the administration of minutes and agendas is cut down drastically. That's really to repeat what various people said. It shouldn't be laughed at, I think.
I think we've had enough discussion on this, and I'm going to go for the proposal. I'm going to go for the proposal.
I'd like to make a proposal, Chairman.
Okay, well, there's a proposal in the report.
Yes, but I'm allowed as a councillor to make a proposal.
Make your proposal then. Make your proposal.
I would like to propose that we accept a form of restructuring which abolishes parks and planning, abolishes the planning subcommittee. We then create, well, obviously we retain the staffing committee, we retain full council. I'm just going across the page. We have a planning committee. We do not have a finance and general purpose committee, and all the terms of reference for the two committees below the council, staffing committee and planning, are, as you suggest, decided at a later meeting. Perhaps a working group is set up to agree or work on those terms, but I don't know how you're going to do it. You can't do it via email. And then that all working groups, as they currently are, report to full council. That's my proposal.
Do you have a second to that proposal?
Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I think...
There's Richard Gossett. He's making huffing noises, which I'm finding irritating. Sorry,
that was the lengthiest proposal that I've ever heard.
Well, the proposal here is huge.
I'm just trying to work out how to shorten it out for members. Can I just try and condense what you've just said? Remove Finance and General Purposes Committee.
Correct.
Remove Planning Committee.
No, subcommittee.
The Council Staffing Planning Committee removed.
Okay.
Finance and General Purposes
Just a minute.
Committee is removed.
Just a minute.
All working groups report to Council. Is that what you...
Yeah, so we're starting at the top. We have a council meeting. We're not discussing the terms of when they meet. We're just the structure. It's the proposal it says here. You know, so we have a council meeting. We have a staffing committee meeting. We have a planning committee meeting. We abolish parks and planning, and we abolish the subcommittee of planning. So I don't even have to mention this thing on the right that's causing me a problem. So that's my proposal, simplified. And then we set up a working group to, doesn't have to be done tonight, but at a later stage, to set the terms of reference of the two committees. And all working groups, I think, they report. So that's my proposal.
Okay. Can I just say before I ask for a seconder for that we spent a number of evenings working through it to come to this. And this seems to be very much off on the hoof this one, and I'm a bit concerned, if we vote on it. But I'll take your views on it.
Is it possible to intervene before?
Please do, please do.
And it's simply that Councillor Haley made a proposal at the beginning that is not very far from what Councillor Brooks just proposed, but arguably simpler, and I'd like that to be repeated.
Well, can we consult?
Proposal. Don't cross. Can we just please stop cross table chatting? You have a.
But can we consult with Mr. Haley to get it right? Because we haven't had it read out
Can you
yet.
sit down, please? You put forward a proposal. We've not yet been seconded.
No, but it hasn't been read out to be finalised, so I'm asking
Okay.
for Michael Haley's input, if that's okay, for what Michael Elliott said. That I'm not perfect, so I don't, but I would like to get it right, that members could be happy with what I'm proposing.
Well, the proposal from Councillor Brooks is the Council, Staffing Committee and Planning Committee remain. The current Planning and Parks Committee and Planning Subcommittee are abolished. All working groups report to the Council, and the working group is set up for the terms of reference of 2 committees. Does that sound what you
Is that what you just said?
That's what I've said, but I would like to discuss
Okay,
what,
all right.
because I trust Michael Elliott to be the wiser person, and I may have missed something.
Can I just ask you what's going to happen to the work presently done by the Planning and Parks Committee and will be proposed by the Finance and General Purposes Committee?
We don't have any work done by Parks and Planning. Those meetings get changed to full council.
What about the first Finance and General Purposes Committee? Who's going to do the work?
The finance working group do the
Working
work.
Okay.
They do the work very well.
Okay. Councillor Haley,
That's a positive.
your assistance is required in this by Councillor Brooks, I think.
Yes, not quite a proposal I've made. My proposal was to maintain one committee, which is the staffing committee, everything else being working groups which report to council. So there'll be one committee, staffing only, everything else being working groups feeding directly to council.
Sorry, we're missing the point then, but we wouldn't have a planning committee, and we need that.
Just a minute, Councillor Stubb, hang on. I'm very concerned about this because we seem to be, as I said, doing this up on the hoof, and I think this needs more consideration than what we've given it this evening.
Sorry, I'm going to interject and sort of say that it occurs to me that we're not going to be able to sign this off tonight. I propose that the council reconsider this as a working group is assigned to actually look at this, and it needs to probably be a considerable working group as well, which is representative. Subject obviously Martin's not getting through that.
Okay.
So basically I would defer it and get a working group set up.
I've got a proposal on the table from Councillor Brooks.
Well, I quite like the idea, Chairman, that
Okay, well,
that we defer
You've
it.
made your
I
proposal.
don't want to take the risk that then we
You've made your
back down.
proposal. You've made your
I know,
proposal.
but I can retract it,
Okay.
but are you, Adam,
Are you retracting
proposing
your
that?
proposal? You're withdrawing it. Are you withdrawing it?
Well, I just need confirmation.
No, are you withdrawing this
propose for a
proposal?
deferral?
Are you withdrawing your proposal, Councillor?
Then I will withdraw it, and I
Okay.
can,
Right.
I can propose that it's deferred. If I withdraw that, I propose that it's deferred and a working group is set up to look at this in a more detailed way. I didn't want to say an offensive word.
Okay. Councillor.
Well, Chair, I mean, this meeting, I've never known anything like it. In all my experience on council, which is many, many years, we've had a proposal. It's a positive proposal, and it seems to be now changing to something else. It's not right. Can we see if we've got a seconder and vote on it, and then move forward from there?
Councillor Brooks has withdrawn his proposal.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well,
That's what he just said.
Is that definite?
So we do not now have a proposal on the table.
Well, I've just made a new proposal that we
Just a minute.
defer it and we set up a proper working group to look at it, because it was not agreed.
Can we, rather
So
than
that's
elaborate
one
on what you're proposing, can you just give me a proposal?
My proposal is that this is deferred for the preparation of another report that sets up a working group who will look at this properly and take the input from all members, not invited informally, that they do proper report back to council at some period, later stage, and then I would imagine that the
It's coming a long proposal again.
Yes, yes.
But that is my
I
proposal,
propose
we
this-
defer it, and the working group is set up,
Okay.
so that,
Your proposal is that this item is deferred and a working group is set up to investigate the restructure of the council.
yes.
That's all you need to say. Do you accept? You second that? Yes. Okay, do second. Okay. All those in favour of that, of deferral and a working group set up to look at the structure of the council? One, two, three, four, five, yeah. All those against, please?
The sixth, actually, I thought. Yeah, because there was...
Six, yeah.
Six. Sorry, can I just have that again, please? All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2. Do you want that recorded? Abstention.
Can I just say, so if I may, the reason I voted for, because I think it's the only way we're going to move forward from what's
Well,
going to happen tonight.
okay, so that's carried. There is no way that we can discuss that this evening.
No.
Right.
So do we need separate work group, or that will be...
There has to be a
No,
working group set up. An agenda item at a later stage.
Okay.
We'll go down to 2 weeks' time, so that's what we'll do. Okay, thank you. Item 10, floor displays. Clark.
Very short, yeah, very short there. One thing actually was brought to my attention and is on the table in front of you was you may have not got one piece of paper from Amethyst. The last page that you have, I think, ends delivery. You've got a page in front of you now which tells you what they will do. And we're not quite sure what's happened here. It's in my sort of pack, but I don't think it's in yours. Anyway, so you can see there from what Amethyst will want to do. You've got the costs from the two companies that responded to the tender, and both are quoting for exactly the same thing. In fact, I believe Amethyst took the documents off of the Contract Finder website, so that proves that works. But there we are, and this was after an audit was done of brackets, decisions were made about colour scheme, etc., etc. So you've just got costs in front of you there.
I just want to confirm this is definitely for plant and watering.
Planting
And watering, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Watering and maintenance.
Any questions?
Thank you.
No. I propose, please, to accept one of those tenders.
Except Sunday.
Sorry, can I just... Councillor Howard,
I can't propose
you're proposing what?
an accept.
What?
What is it?
No, that's
Well, I'm saying. Now, you've got two tenders there. Which one?
Can I propose that we accept Fundscape being the cheaper one, say £5 over 3 years?
Okay. Proposal to accept landscape.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to know on how do we score?
There is no scoring at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is cheap doesn't necessarily mean the best, and if there's a criteria against what we score, you actually might find the one that is more expensive actually offers a better quality and a better value for money. So I'm just saying.
So I've got a proposal then, landscape, accept landscape's quote. Have a second, please. Councillor Hayden. All those in favour of accepting landscape? All those against? Abstention? 2 and 3. Oh, sorry. Okay. Grant application. Next one. First up, application is from the Oakham Concert Man. At the present time, we have £1,762.50p left in this budget. Just for information. 1762.50p. Remaining in the budget.
Second again, please.
1762.50p remaining in the budget. We have an application, a further application which failed to get in before the deadline for this council, so there's another one which will come in to the next council meeting. So that is not for consideration this evening. We have before us two applications, and the first one is from the Oakham Town Council for £480. That's a book.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to object to this because obviously I've been to two ponds in the past, and to me, spending public money on bangers, which, yes, they slightly improved last year, but most people were sitting in a cloud of smoke. I don't think it adds to the event, and I think the council could spend £480 on something better. When I read an application that says the event is going to provide lots of happy, smiley faces, but I videoed the event, most people were asleep or not.
So yours
really.
might be a happy, smiley face then?
They didn't really have happy, smiley faces. They woke up when the bangers went off, but I'm not very musical, but they didn't appear to be in time either. So I won't be voting for this expenditure.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd just like to ask if we have got this band down as our, on any of the bands performing.
Rubber concert band, isn't it? Yes, we have later on in the year.
Yeah, and I've actually done that.
Yes.
Yeah, any other comments?
Yeah.
No, okay. And I propose then to accept the request of £480 for the Oakham Concert Band. Councillor Elliott. Seconded. Councillor Howard. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those against? Councillor Brooks, recorded?
Yes.
Abstentions? Okay, 2 abstentions. Thank you. And the next one is for the Girl Guide Association. Which is for £1,000.
Yeah, I have no objection to this being granted, but what I do object to, and it happens frequently over the years, is that we don't often get much reporting back. Is they say if they don't need it, they might return it to us. My view is that you don't pay anything unless it's needed. So I would say that we agree to grant, if I'm allowed to, but we don't pay it until it's needed. We get so many times people say, oh, we'll pay it back, and then you hear little rumours that it wasn't actually spent on the thing, and there's no checks.
Okay, thanks for that.
I noticed, Chair, that they say we have some funds of our own. I'd like to know what those funds are. Well, one.
I don't think they say it.
No, they don't. And the second thing is they've just got one quote. I would like to get 3 quotes.
Well, as I said in the letter to you, went out with your packs, that we do have 3 quotes in the office from them. And the cheapest one was for the one that is stated on the application.
1,000 now.
There are 3 quotes in the office.
So if you want to see those quotes. Okay.
In view of the fact that the Guide Association have been long established in Oakham, this hut has been built for a very long time, and because they have got other funding that they have sought, and they are asking for a contribution of £1,000, I propose that we grant the full application for £1,000.
Second of that, okay. All those in favour of granting £1,000 to the Guide Association? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those against? Abstentions? 1. 2 abstentions, yeah. Who is it? You're not waiting on them. Okay, thanks. to the next item, which is the external audit opt-in over the clock.
Yes. So the audit regime is changing. It's not changing for a couple of years now. You've got all of the information there. But quite simply, the recommendation from our or the council's overseer, if you like, which is the Leicestershire Rutland Association of Local Councils, is that it remains opted in. To opt out is, as Ray described, a complex